Let's dive in. Welcome back to another Monday Mastermind with Every Move Collective. As many of you know, myself, my mom Eva, my brother Dylan, we run a top producing team out of Westchester County, New York and Connecticut. We also run Every Move Collective at eXp Realty, which brings you these bi-monthly masterminds where we come together and learn and network and build in community on the second and fourth Monday of every month. So really glad you're all here. Appreciate you coming to support us as we do something a little different. Usually we have an outside guest come on. We sort of reflected on the business that we've built and been building and thought, let's let's be the guests on our own call and talk a little bit about what it's like to be a family in real estate and share on that. So without further ado, I don't really have, I'll let Eva introduce herself instead of me doing my normal guest intro, and then we can dive in and share some slides.
Well, thank you, Cole. And thank you, everybody, for being here. I do want to take just a moment to dive into a little bit of who I am as it relates to the production end of the business, because we don't usually spend much time on that. I've been in the industry for about 17, or more than 17 years now, probably 12 years full time, licensed in New York and Connecticut. And I'm proud to say that we are typically, in the top 1, 2, or 3 in our office stats. We are typically in the top 1% of the local MLS. We've had the good fortune to be featured in Top Realtors in Westchester Magazine, and most recently able to icon twice in about a year and a half. For those of you who are EXP, you know what that means. But obviously we're talking everybody here. I want to introduce Dylan, who is on our team as well and is part of this family tree here, who is on my team now as buyer's agent, but I'll let him tell you a little bit about who he is.
Hi everyone. So I've been on the team for about 2 years now. First year working in an admin role, and then last year was my first full year as a buyer's agent. I kind of jumped into this business straight out of college. With COVID and the market of jobs being tough, I kind of decided to fall back into real estate because I already had my license from, my mom encouraging it as I was in college. She was just like, you should get this and you could use it for referrals. And if you decide to join the business, then one day you do. And so here we are a few years later and doing it together as a group.
Excellent. Thanks, Dylan. Before we jump in, I will just take a moment to pat Dylan on the back. He did close 15 transactions in his first 12 months of actual buyer agent role. So congrats, Dylan, and thank you for all you do for the team. Cole, you want
Thank you.
to get
Yeah,
us
so
going here?
I do. First of all, I'd love to just, whether in the chat or raising your hand, are you currently in a family business, just so we can get a feel for the room? I know some of the folks on here are, cousins of ours in the business. So, it's like a family affair everywhere we look. But and then second question is, are you considering joining or starting one? Like, have you been in the real estate business for, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 years? And is your dream for your kids to get into the business with you, something like that? So just let us know in the chat. Oops, you're gonna have to bear with me on this presentation thing. I don't usually do this. I let the guests do it. Um, and
That's why we need you, Lorraine. I could see you all over this.
yeah, someone else is gonna have to monitor the chat because I can't do the chat and the
We got it. No worries.
Okay, cool.
Trish is in the business with her husband.
Yes, yes.
So
Which, I don't know how everyone comes to it in different ways, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I think that, Eva started in this business on her own, with the support of Rob, my dad, her husband. And it wasn't until many, many years later that Dylan and I decided to pursue this path as well. And I think, I know that that was Trish's situation with Jason. Her business was thriving and there was an opportunity there. So Eva really created an opportunity that was appealing for us to, come in and be a part of the growth and the support. Eva, maybe you can share a little bit about your experience, like more of your origin story.
Sure. And I was just thinking that, family businesses are not something that's foreign to me. One of my first jobs was working for my dad. He had a gas station at Kennedy Airport, and I pumped gas there, along with many of my cousins who are on this call. So the family business goes way back and deep here. And I will not lie, I would be lying if I said there were never any problems with that, because, it's hard to call in sick when you're 17 and your father is running the business. It's hard to get away with that kind of stuff. Fortunately, with the business that we run now, my children are both adults and everybody is in it for the right reasons right now. Before we jump to, how I built my business in real estate, though, I do want to give credit to yet another family member. I wasn't in real estate, I was in travel. And if it wasn't for my cousin Rick, I would not have gone into real estate. I went in kicking and screaming, thinking I did not want to sell, I could not sell, I hated salespeople. And yet here I am singing a different story. So I think, family business has been woven into my life, my entire, into my career, my entire life. And then, of course, most recently, in my previous company and now, getting into it, having some really tough times, not always making money, but sticking with it and learning that I love the business. I love what I do, and I could be really successful at it, until I got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore alone. I needed the right people around me, and I think that's where the family piece of my current business comes in. And then, Colby, you had your own journey that caused you to jump in as well.
Yeah, I think that for me, my mom, I was no surprise to me, or mystery to me that my mom wanted me to join her in real estate, but I never felt pressured to join her in real estate. She'd encouraged me to get my license just so I could do referrals when my friends started buying homes in my, 20s. And I was glad that I did that. I got a taste for what was possible in real estate while working another career in a totally different industry. And when I felt really, burnout and like I wasn't really excited about the future for myself in that industry, I decided to come into real estate kind of at my own pace. And at my own time. And that helped me kind of really embrace it versus, Eva maybe having encouraged me to do it earlier than I was ready. So I really came to it on my own after exploring another industry, and deciding that it wasn't quite right for me and seeing the potential that real estate had. I felt like there was no glass ceiling. It's actually one of my favorite things about real estate is like, yes, the barrier to entry in real estate is low. It's not super difficult, as we know, to get your real estate license. But then once you're licensed, it's what you make of it. And anyone can like punch through any glass ceiling because there's so much opportunity if you have the right mindset and the right skill set. That's one of my favorite things about being in this business and being able to do it with my family has just been really rewarding. Um, and Dylan, I know Dylan, oh, Dylan, can you just make sure everyone's muted?
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you guys want to jump in, unmute.
Dylan mentioned that he found opportunity in a difficult COVID job market. Dylan, did you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, what I was kind of bouncing from place to place, not sure where I was going to end up at the time too. So I was living in San Diego, prior to that, Santa Barbara, and then I moved to Florida on a whim, and I was kind of just working restaurant job, and I had this license that, I only could use in New York. So, I mean, unless I wanted to focus on the referral, but that I felt that wasn't really like my lane. I feel like my best work is done with the clients directly, so that's why I feel like it's a better move for me to come here in the end. And now, a full year into it, feeling like my feet are on the ground and have lots of opportunity to grow.
Yeah, and then we'd be amiss not to mention my dad. He's also licensed. He has a full-time career in another industry, but it's really helpful to have him have his license. He can help us with open houses. You know, if we're all traveling for a conference, like we will be upcoming, we're all, me, Eva, Dylan, we're all going to Cabo, and Rob can hold down the fort with, you know, Margaret, who's our operations manager, who's also on this call. And just being able to have him licensed and really understand the ins and outs of the business has been a really, really big support for us. So if you know, have kids or family members who are lightly thinking about getting their license, I think we always say, like, get your license. It really never hurts to have. It's not that expensive to keep. And you know, it's a good way to start to get your toes wet.
Yep.
Um,
Go ahead, Cole.
yeah, and just, you know, we kind of already touched on this, but I really think the importance of choice is key because, you know, if you're working in a family business and you don't want to be working in the family business, then it's not going to lead to a whole lot of harmony or, you know, energizing feelings. You're going to run up against a lot of obstacles and challenges. So again, like me coming to this on my own in my own time was really important for me to be in it.
I think to that point, and something, you know, maybe there are people on the call that can relate to this. I've often heard that you don't want to get into a family business because of, you know, all of the scary things that might happen. And I think one of those things comes out of that personal choice situation. If anybody feels like they're doing it because they have to do it, you're always going to struggle to see eye to eye on almost everything you do in the business. So if you're thinking about doing something like this with your family members, you want to make sure that everybody has made a clear decision for themselves. I could say that's the most true with Dylan, because Dylan almost came to this decision because of COVID. And so we wanted to, you know, we had lots of conversation around, do you really want to do this? Not just because you can't do something else because of COVID, but is this feeling right? In the beginning, it wasn't a really solid yes. It took a little bit to make sure that that was correct. Hola.
I just love the Zoom feature where you just raise your hand and it goes up by itself. Anyway, um, for family business, I mean, we've had and heard of experiences where if you don't see eye to eye, that, you know, it can cause a rift in the family and you can't, you know, leave your family like you leave a job. So I always had that worry, but I was wondering, maybe is communication on a regular basis, like, because you might be feeling it now, but do you check in and have like weekly meetings or bi-monthly meetings so that you can keep in touch with your family members to make sure that you're all still on the same page?
Yeah, that I think that's a really good point. I have had the experience of my parents having that struggle in businesses with their families. So I'm no stranger to that, and it is something that I'm really aware of. And I think that what your question falls under kind of where we're going with this leveraging unique strengths and collaboration and growth, right? You have to make sure that when you're speaking to somebody, you know, you talk to a family member differently than you talk to a business partner. And you have to
For
make
better
sure,
or worse.
yeah, and you have to make sure you have the right hat on at the right time. So, you know, when we were preparing for this mastermind, we were talking about the pros and the cons, and we'll get into a little bit of that. But, you know, one of the cons, I think, is there's so much at risk, so much more than just a business partnership. Um, so it's something that has to be top of mind every day.
Yeah, and you know, I think we can kind of segue that into how do we actually leverage the unique strengths of our team, and what do we really see as some of the biggest benefits of being a family on team? I mean, first and foremost, there's already like deep trust built in to our family personally anyway. And so that helps us know that day in and day out, we can trust one another, that we're going to have each other's backs. We know one another's work ethic. So we know that the clients that we're, handing off, because sometimes Eva gets a client, she, gives that to Dylan. And she knows that it's going to be taken care of. He's an agent on her team, and she not only knows him as a buyer's agent, but she knows him as a son. And so that just allows us to really have that built-in trust. Also, collaboration. There's just like a lot of ease in collaborating because, we're just always in constant communication. We can kind of like mastermind anytime we talk, like off the cuff. I think that has its pros and cons too, and we'll talk about that later, like just like having some boundaries around like work and personal time, but being able to be in like constant collaboration because you're family and there's so much inspiration that comes from home that we can bring into work is just a really cool element. And I'll hand it off to someone else to talk about the second point.
Dylan, you want to jump in? Because, if you wait for us to let you talk, you'll be in trouble all day long.
Yeah, I'm not the most well versed in disc profiles, but I do know that there's a variety of different types of people that we have in this group. I don't know exactly what Eva or Colby are.
Yeah,
But
I think regardless of disc profiles, whether you've done a disc profile or you just know what your strengths and weaknesses are, you have opportunity to kind of maximize on that within a team environment to collaborate better. So, Dylan has certain strengths, I have certain strengths, Eva has certain strengths, and we know that about one another.
yeah, and I think that like for Eva, like one of the strengths that I see the most is her ability to connect with so many people. She, knows so many different agents, different resources such as lenders and, inspectors and all that good stuff. So, we can give our clients the best options when it comes to, I don't need to call her to find out which people she's interested in, giving business to and helping out and having be a part of it. Like I know who her trusted circle is and who I can use. And so I have that, liberty to send people and, I can focus more on the approach that's more best for me. I'm very hands-on with the client. I, I try to talk to them as much as possible, and that's where I feel like my skills are best on display is, being able to have a conversation and make them feel comfortable. And, Colby handles a lot of that behind the scenes stuff. She's so good organizationally and, you know, puts the whole glue together for it. And, can't forget to mention other team members like Margaret and Sophia, they help out a lot in different ways.
I was actually just going to put Margaret on the spot for a half a second because I am curious from your perspective, is how challenging or not is it to be working with an entire family? I really didn't think about that so much until this moment. Is it harder or easier or does it make a difference? What are your thoughts around that?
I don't think it's challenging. And if anything, I think there's a lot of advantages because you guys know each other so well and what the strengths are. And and not flaws, but where you might individually struggle and who would be better equipped to handle something. So, and you're very much in tune because it's just so seamless for you. So I actually find that it makes things easier, when I'm having a conversation with Colby about something that's going on in her insight. So yeah, I think it works really, really well. And I just think knowing people at that intimate of a level really does just lead to efficiency and success.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate all of you. You read us all very well and help us manage, the different aspects of our business. The next point here, I'll just jump real quickly, is expanding multiple regions is something that we really didn't even recognize until more recently. Having, Colby on one coast and us on the other gives us the opportunity to support people in, both regions. And, Colby has been able to host events, sponsor people, and refer business out to relationships that she has that I would never have because I don't live in LA and I don't have relationships there. Same is true here in New York for myself and Dylan. Dylan with a different demographic. He's younger and he has, people that are in his circle that aren't necessarily in mine. Although some of them are our parents, our friends and parents, and so he can poach my little pool, but I don't mind. Nobody else. I don't know if anybody answered in the chat earlier, but is anybody else working like Trish said earlier with her husband? Anybody working with a brother, sister, mother, or have they in the past? And is any of does this resonate with you, or is it just something that you're interested in learning a little bit about?
Hi, I work with my best friend, so this is definitely resonating.
I saw you in the corner there, Christiana.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Working
Yeah,
with a
I
best
agree.
friend
I
is no
think
joke.
knowing strengths and not my childhood best friend, because that would be Colby and Casoria, who's basically like a sister, and Eva like a second mother. But yeah, one of my business partners here in the Philadelphia region, she is also a best friend and she's wonderful. So I resonate with a lot of this, but I think the strengths and weaknesses are key. Like we know each other's strengths versus weaknesses, and we also know we have some of the same flaws. So those are things we even have to like hone in on even more sometimes.
That's a
Or
good point.
outsource, hire where you're weakest so that no one has to do tasks that don't energize them and just drain
Well, that's
them.
one of our biggest hurdles is delegating. So we're
Right.
working on that.
Yep.
Well, I'm proud to say that Christiana, I was a big influence in Christiana getting into real estate, and she has gone on to have a really great career. So I'm very, very proud. I
That
do
is
feel like
Eva is
she's,
the only one of the main reasons and only reasons I'm in real estate and selling at the moment. So yes.
and she is like a second daughter. She's a part of our family and has been since she was born. So really, that story of this family relationship thing, I guess, is something that comes pretty naturally to us because we come with a strong family base, and that makes it really rewarding when we see people succeed
Yeah.
because we've been integral in somebody who's not just a friend or a colleague but also family. So that's one of the pluses to doing this. We said before about the risk. Well, there's a plus. Being able to help somebody like that is really important.
Yeah, and I just wanted to quickly expand on the generational advantages thing. We're kind of all three of us are different generations, right? I think Dylan and I are different.
I'm probably the
Yeah.
youngest, but that's
Dylan and I are a different generation, and I think that that's cool because we have different skills when it comes to like technology and social media. Eva's been in this business 17 years. She doesn't want to always go and drive an hour to work a client that's, further away county in our market. Dylan, who's like young and hungry and loves to drive in the car and listen to his music on the way to an appointment, um, is happy to kind of take that on while he's learning. So, I think that that's kind of cool. It allows us to connect. It allows us to tackle different tasks, help clients in different ways, and attract different eras, generations of clients in our business, and also connect with agents of all different ages. Not saying, you can't connect outside of your generation. Obviously, we do that all the time. But it's just nice to have a little diversity. So
And
anyway.
also three minds reminding each other of things is something like I don't usually work in the Staten Island area. It's pretty far for us. And I normally wouldn't even consider it, except I now have what's like a grandchild to me in Staten Island. And I got a referral and I thought, oh, maybe this is a good excuse to go see my nephew Austin's baby, and get some work as well. And I said to Colby, who do we know in Staten Island? And she rattled it off. And I had met the person, but totally forgotten that they were in Staten Island. So having the three minds, kind of working towards the same goal, which is, more and better business, I think helps too. It's still pretty far to go to Staten Island, though, I will say that.
Yeah. So, as we kind of touched on, obviously there's challenges to overcome. One of which is there's blurred lines. And, I think we'll talk about that also a little bit more in this next slide. But, I think when Eva and I were kind of prepping for this call, we were talking a little bit about what this meant. And it's like, the reality is because you're in business together and we're entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship is 24/7 and we're running a business, we could talk about our business all day long, any hour of the night. We're also in different coasts, so different time zones. Like there is less time to shoot the shit about the personal stuff. And so we have to be intentional to create conversations and time spent that isn't just all around business. And to be candid, we could probably improve at this. And we're hiring more and more people on our team so that we can get more of our time back, I think, so that we can have more of that personal life back. So it's not just all business all the time. So that's a challenge to be aware of if you're getting into business with someone. I'm sure Christiana can relate to this. Like, you're in business with your best friend. Like, when are you not talking about business? Like, how often are you hanging out where business doesn't actually come up?
Well, that's a good question. It
Yeah,
depends. But also
depends.
sometimes we're just so overwhelmed that we're like, all right, we'll hang out like almost every Friday night we hang out. And then it's like, okay, we've been working all week. We've had our laptops out all day. It's 8:30. Let's put it away.
Good. Yeah. And like having those boundaries is really important when you're in business with someone that you're so close with.
Yeah.
Um,
And then kind of the other way, like, sometimes we're like in the groove with work and as we call them carrots, like random thoughts about life jump in and we're like, oh, wait, not work related, but we ran into so and so and like, here's that
mhm.
update.
Yes.
I want to go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to move on to the next one because it also kind of relates when you're in business with your best friend, business in your family, you want to take a trip. Everyone's out of town. There's no one there to cover the open houses. There's no one there to go on the listing appointment. No one there to, meet with the buyers. So that presents a challenge as well. And so hiring people from outside of your family to help you run your business and be really efficient is something that we've found to be super important.
Yeah, actually, that's where I was going, Colby, with this. And I was going to call Dylan to just say, sometimes Dylan will say, I'll stay home because of that, because we need that support at home. And that's a little bit of a sacrifice for him sometimes on the learning side of things. So we are always looking to balance that. And Dylan, Dylan, you're going to Cabo, but you're not going to be there the exact same dates we are. It's going to be there a little shorter.
Yeah, a little shorter than you. Yeah, I feel like Colby and Eva's strengths are in those spheres in Cabo, like talking to all these agents, and that's not really where I feel the most comfortable. So if, they need the help at home, I'd rather, take on that. And it also gives me the opportunity to, get more business and deals done before the end of the year, So if I can be the person that's at home helping out with that and don't have to be so front facing with all these people because it's not really my specialty. I don't really like thrive in that kind of situation. I'm best in like one-on-one scenarios, I feel. So like that's why I feel the most comfortable with just the clients. Like I, can have the direct conversation with them and I don't need to bounce from one conversation to the next to the next. Like that feels overwhelming for me. So yeah.
We've learned a
Yeah.
lot about our sliding scale of introversion and extroversion over the past couple years, I think. I would say Eva's probably the most extroverted. I'm pretty high up there too, but maybe a little bit lower on the scale. And then Dylan, I think, identifies as being a little bit more introverted. And I say introverted, extroverted is more like, where do you recharge? Not do you enjoy people? I think everyone, to some extent, if you're in real estate, you have to enjoy people and working with people. But how do you recharge? What's draining your energy? And so we've just learned how to balance that.
So I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I know we've asked about family. How about friends? Is anybody here do they partner with, besides I know Christiana stepped up and mentioned a best friend. Is anybody else doing that same thing where they are partnering with somebody on their business? A good friend, you know, not necessarily related, or is everybody else solo? Just solo?
I can add something if you like.
Sure.
I have actually somebody in my team who's a friend for many years, and um, her and her husband are very good friends, and she's always lagging behind, and it's so difficult to put more pressure because of the friendship. So I wouldn't do that again if I knew. I was expecting everything to be roses, but it's not.
Yeah, it can take a challenging turn for sure.
If it was somebody else, he would have been fired from the team already.
I think that's true with family too. I think we tend to be more tolerant of each other because the alternative is, dissolving, and that can be really challenging too. And maybe that's why in the end, when it blows up so big. Because if you don't have good communication skill set to talk through, some of those challenges, and part of that is because there's this personal piece, it maybe makes it, grow into a bigger thing. I actually have partnered with friends and colleagues, and that's been an interesting twist as well. Carlos, we've always worked together separately, and then I started like a partnership with people, and you don't really know how people work until you're actually working with them, like really with them, not
Yep.
just on the other side of a deal.
Yeah, I think I also had a partnership with a friend, parted ways, didn't end up working out. And I think what I learned from that experience is, you really need the same vision, more or less. You really have to be working towards the same thing, same vision, same mission. Um, and you really need to just get along in just the right way. And that's actually kind of where those disc profiles can come in handy, because you can actually see like, where are the strengths, where are the weaknesses, are we on opposite sides of the chart, are we too much of the same? Sometimes it just takes trying something to see if it does or doesn't work. Ideally having conversations in advance, like, if this doesn't work, we're gonna really be able to part ways, not taking this personally, maintain the friendship, and know that we tried something. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't, you need to all come crashing down. And that does work sometimes and doesn't work other times. And so, just being really, really mindful, because life isn't all about work. Life is about the relationships that we have and that we value and treasure. And so I don't know if that was Marie chiming in or just maybe she's off mute. Anyway, that's kind of touches on this whole bullet point number 3, higher stakes, higher risk. You have to be more intentional.
Yeah, I think, we've already kind of touched on the managing blurred boundaries, separating those personal discussions from personal family time. And I think it's really important that you make sure you save some of your energy for the family time. Because I know for me, and I think Colby especially, because we're on different time zones, when it gets to that point, it's exhausting. I might be exhausted or she might be exhausted. So it cuts into that time. Protecting the family relationships, falls right into that. Being intentional about preserving family moments outside of the business hours we've hit on. And it speaks to what, Lorraine was saying earlier about, being really communicative with the parties that are involved to make sure that you're expressing what's going on and what's important, and you're not losing sight of things that are really important. Navigating increased risks. Go ahead, Lori.
I'm just going to add that what I'm hearing in this meeting is I manage a team of 5, and it's really like just running any team, recognizing strengths and weaknesses of your team members and respecting that. Like Dylan was saying, he'd rather not be out front as the person speaking, but he's doing it. I'm very impressed with that, by the way. But I assign the tasks to people. I give them the things that they can do best, and recognize that that not everyone is going to be able to do everything, in the same way. So running a team, our biggest thing is that if we don't keep communicating, it goes wrong. It just goes sideways. So because you got to keep everybody happy somehow, or we all have to keep each other happy, and you're happy when you're all successful. So if you're doing what you're good at, that's one thing, but communication, that's what I'm finding. I have struggled with some team members who are really good at doing the job, but they can't communicate with the other team members. So again, just constant, well, I don't want to say constant, but I'd say scheduled meetings to really open up and talk about it have been helpful.
Purposeful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree. I think that, having intentional conversations with team members is just as important as, working with the family business. In fact, we've gone through some of that lately. Margaret's been with us almost a year now. And we've been able to evaluate where she's happiest and where her strengths are, where I'm happiest and where my strengths are. And, then hiring people, like Colby mentioned earlier, to fill in some of those gaps so that we're not feeling beat up all the time.
Yeah, and something that we did about a year and a half ago when we really started working together at a much higher level was we did come up with, we created a document where each of us individually, Eva, Dylan, and myself, all wrote down a list of our personal goals, both as it related to our individual goals and goals within the team. We put that all into a document, and we also put all of our responsibilities into a document. And then as we continued to expand the team and expand the business, and that started to, obviously, when you expand the business, that doesn't come without more responsibilities. So there's more tasks, more responsibilities. And as we built that out and built in new team members, we kind of would revisit that, like what's missing, who's doing what. And I think right now, what I'm trying to do is, we just attended a presentation a couple weeks ago. The guest presenter talked about how, like, really getting intentional about an organizational chart, like who's doing what, and can we make sure that no one else is like also doing that, because we don't need 2 people in the same seat, and we don't want any seats empty. So just getting super, super clear for me, systems, organizational, mindset is kind of like my skill set. So really being intentional and bringing that back to the team, like here's an organizational chart that we can use to inform our decisions and the way that we structure everything.
Yep. So Dylan, you want to jump into section 4 for us? Just read off a couple of those bullets and we'll chat about that.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the team has to have some sort of shared goal, and like everyone has to live up to their part of the expectations. And keeping regular check-ins is very important. I mean, we have a monthly in-person meeting ourselves, and then we also have a weekly team like online Zoom meeting, and then I also do a check-in with Margaret once a week separate from those meetings, just to talk individually about clients. So I think that all those things are really important to creating continuity for the team and getting people to really be on board with the goals. If no one's being checked in on, I think that things start to go by the wayside and people feel less connected to the team, and they're easily unmotivated and not following up on what they should be. So I think that the check-ins are important. And then, yeah, just everyone supporting on the team. Our team is built of people, different, you know, strength, like we talked about a lot. And, when someone isn't around to do something like a showing or an open house, we always have someone else who's willing to step up. And that, is a really great support network to have. I can speak to, some offers too. Like I have 2 offers that have to be submitted today by 5 p.m. And, I can turn to Eva as another reference, to make sure that we're coming in as strong as we want to be. And, even though I've done most of the work in terms of figuring out what needs to be done in terms of comps and what's a good area to be in, Eva can really help with that final say and getting the clients to feel most comfortable because she can speak from her years of experience. So,
Yeah, I will say something. I just want to add to that in the opposite way. I don't think most people think this, but I experienced it myself earlier on in my career. And I saw Dylan experiencing it recently. And the reason I know Dylan did 15 deals in the last 12 months is because Dylan was feeling discouraged. He was feeling like he wasn't, kind of doing as well as he thought he should. And I remember having a year like that where I thought I should be doing better. And then when we finally like stopped to breathe, lifted up our heads and counted, we actually were doing much better than we thought we were. So I think it's important as not just family members. Now we're kind of melding into just teams, whether you're family or a team, to remind each other to see if you really are doing better than you think. And that's what happened. Dylan didn't know how many deals he had done. His goal had been 15. And then when he added it up, that's exactly what he had done. So all of a sudden it took a different feel. It was just a different, emotion. And I think that's important. So be accountable to your meaningful milestones and setting goals. And don't forget to check in with them and make sure you know where you are with it, because sometimes you're doing better than you think. This is an interesting question, Cole. I don't know if you want to take it or if you want me to, but
Go for it.
this is beyond real estate. This is in any business. I came across a YouTube thing and I was listening to it, and the moderator was asking, when you're forming a team, especially in family, with a family, he was saying, you want to measure your, what percentage you have of success versus failure, if you're prone for success or failure. And the example he gave is, he said you should ask yourself, what is your motivation? Each person on the team should be asking themselves their motivation. And is it financially motivated or is it achievement motivated? So if you ask yourself this right now and you say to yourself, well, I'm 50% financially motivated because I have this financial goal and I need to put food on the table. And, there's so many reasons why that's important to me. However, I'm also 50%, achievement motivated because I'm at a point in my career where, I maybe don't have anything to prove, but I want to hit those like bucket list items before I wrap up my career. So for me, it might be 50-50. In the example that they gave on the YouTube video, it was a father and son. And the son said he was 70-30 financial 30, and achievement motivated was 70. And his father was 100% not financially, achievement motivated. And that was because his father had plenty of money. He didn't need to make money. It was all about the achievement milestones. And the evaluation on that was, you have a high likelihood of having conflict in the relationship unless you somehow set the groundwork before you jump in. Because if you're both after the achievement recognition and you're both not after the money, the seesaw isn't even. You're going to have a rocky ride. So I think that's important. And when I showed this to Colby the other day, I said, this is something we really haven't done well. This is something we need to identify. Like, where are we in that? Do we complement each other? And where we don't complement each other, how do we do something about that?
Yeah, so kind of a food for thought slide because we thought it was interesting. We're reflecting on it, and maybe it's something worth reflecting on in your own business as well. And it's not like there's a right or wrong answer. It's just about making sure there's enough room at the table for everyone to get the recognition that they want. And achievement doesn't only mean recognition. Achievement, you could be in it for the achievement of helping people. You could be in it for the achievement of reaching, specific certain milestones. You could be in the achievement for recognition, for speaking on stages, etc. If all you care about is speaking on stages, who's making sure that financially there's, financial wellness
Right.
in business?
Exactly.
So.
And just to shift gears for a second here, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, Anthony, but there are people on this call.
I'm coming off mute. Let's go.
Which Anthony are you putting on
You
the
are
spot?
somebody on the. Oh, you too, Anthony. But I don't know if this is true for you, Lavella. For Anthony Jiha, though, you grew up in a family-run business, which is really interesting. That is actually the business you're in now, right? So I'm curious. Do you feel like, or how much do you feel that affected the outcome and where you are now?
Yeah, so you guys said something earlier that was really that was sort of bouncing around in my head that I'd like to talk about now. It was like that you got to make that choice for yourself. You can't really have somebody else make it for you and then actually be in it. And I'm reading this book right now called Let Them. I don't know if you guys have read it, but read it. It's really good. It talks about where you're putting your energy and how to sort of, it's boundary based, but it's also about letting people be themselves and you removing yourselves emotionally from their decisions, trying to control what they're doing. And really what it all comes down to is I can't be in this business because I didn't choose it, and therefore I've lost my control, and therefore I will not actually be in it. So for me, it was go to LA, be your own person. And that happened, right? Like for me, I was fulfilled in terms of like job, paid well, bought a house, married a beautiful woman, had a baby. All the stuff was filled up for me. And I was like, I'm not going to continue to do this to Roman and my son in LA. So let's make this now new decision for myself. Let's join family, which I've always been, which is always I've always been connected to my family. That's top tier priority for me. So then it became, I've made my decision. Unfortunately, things went a little sideways, but it was still like, I knew that the reason I was coming was for family. So I still had family. I still had that desire to connect to the place I grew up, to the area that I love and I know well. And that is what got me, like, allowed me to make that choice for myself. The second part of your question was what? Sorry.
No, you've actually covered a little bit of it in that I was wondering if that childhood that you experienced, if it kept you away from real estate at first or how it related to how you got back in it.
Yeah, and I guess that, so yeah, it kind of kept me away from it. Obviously dad worked a lot, and so that was something that I didn't want to do. And I still like really think about that probably too much, where I'm like, I want to be present when I'm here and I don't want to take phone calls when I don't need to, or if I decided I'm not going to, then I really have to figure that out. Like in here, it has to be purposeful. It can't be all sloppy all over playing with Roman while maybe trying to take a phone call at the same time. It's just not going to work on either side. So yeah, that was something. And then I always think about Minerva's, my dad's mom's, my grandma's restaurant, and how fun that was for everybody in the times that, when it existed, like being around those like-minded people who wanted to help, but really felt like the restaurant business was cool and that it was fun to do. And yeah, it was really tough, but having people you loved around you made it more enjoyable and made all the hard work, worth it. Because what the heck else are you doing if not working with your family, for your family, and sort of trying to create a legacy for everybody? So in a way, that is this, right? Like I'm doing something that my family has done that is all about connecting people to the things that they want in their life, and then I get to also be more connected and closer to proximity wise my family and the people that I love. So that, it took a while for me to get there, and I really feel fortunate now that I made this decision, and I got to spend the time with my dad while I did, because if I didn't start making those decisions when I did, I never would have got that time. And now having Roman around, his nanny and Pat, as he calls her, and everybody else, it's a joy for me, and I really feel, whatever happens in real estate, like that, I'm fulfilled, that I've made a decision that's filling my cup daily.
Well, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. I have to say, Minerva is near and dear to my heart, and I feel that connection to that restaurant. Anytime I talk to anybody from Fremont, I ask them if they knew Minerva's, and half the times they did.
Half the time, yeah, it's at least half. I had
Maybe
a
more,
sale
maybe
that,
more.
yeah, I had a sale for a house or a condo in Oakland. I've talked to this listing agent multiple times, tons of times. We finally get to the end. She's like, I have to ask you, are you related to Rick G? I was like, yeah, he was my dad. She was like, and the cafe in Fremont, that was you too? And I was like, yeah, I'm Minerva's. And she was like, and do you make those breads and the cinnamon rolls? And I was like, no. She's like, why not? She was like, couldn't believe that I had access to those ingredients or the recipes, and didn't act on them. So
Speaking
yeah,
of
it
that, I
happens
think
all
I
the
have to
time.
follow up on some of those recipes.
Yeah.
But you also said something here, Anthony, that I think is true for Colby and Dylan too, that both of them saw me like your dad, maybe not from a very young age, but at least their second half of their childhood on the phone. And this is a big aha for me, and I think everybody here, if you just take note, I always thought taking that phone call at the game was me being able to be there, because the alternative was I would have been in a 9 to 5 and I couldn't be there at all. I think they always thought, and like you just expressed, that was the interruption. That was, the not good thing. So the perception and lack of communication around that one specific thing can really change everything. So if in this world, it sounds like you're really well on your path of being, separating the two. But
I'm doing, it's not without its bumps, and I definitely have taken a call while tickling Roman at the same time, but it just is like, once he starts to really be aware, like he already can see, he's like, Papa, put that down. Like, so I know
it's already
it's
telling
happening.
you what to do.
Yeah,
I
right.
like that.
So yeah, and I can feel it too when I'm fully there and when I'm not fully there, which is,
I think the moral of that story is be present.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay, so I hope that, Colby, I think we hit on everything, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay, I want to, for one, say that I love that I'm in business with my immediate family. I have a lot of extended family on this call that I truly love being in business with as well. And I want to thank everybody here that tuned in to just kind of see what it's like to maybe be in a family business or apply it to running your own team. Like Carla said, even friends, they don't always come without challenges. So we hope that you got something out of joining us today. We certainly did. And Cole, you want to tell them what's coming up next, or?
Yes, our next call is in March. So I'm actually just going to really quickly share our lineup here so you can see what we've got next. The next one is friend working. So stop networking, start friend working, which I love because we're all in a relationship business, and we're bringing on Jesse Zagorski from our organization, EXP agent, who's going to talk about the amazing business that he's built just by being in, authentic, genuine relationship with people. So we hope you'll join us for that one. And then we've got the legendary Krista Mayshore coming on at the end of March. We will be doing learning from her about how to develop your brand with digital marketing. So definitely attend this one if you're interested in social media marketing development. And for anyone who is in the Los Angeles area, we'll be having a mixer next Thursday March 6th, just for some agents to get together and friend work, not network, friend work. So if you or anyone you know wants to come, send me a message and we'll make sure that they get the RSVP link. But that's about all for today. So thank you for being here. If you have any questions.
Anyone going to be in Cabo? Cabo, Anthony? Either
Anthony's not
Anthony?
going.
Oh, no. All right, Anthony, then I'm just going to have to visit you in Long Island. Anthony, are you a maybe or you're a no?
I think I'm a no.
Missed you.
We got some PSI stuff we're doing
Ah,
that weekend in
can you talk
over
to
here,
Dylan
over
about
here.
that?
I'm more
We
than happy
talked about
to.
it a little bit, but it never finished.
Okay, can you follow
Yeah.
up? I want Dylan to be like, I want you to drag Dylan there like your father dragged you.
Well, you know, it took me then, to be clear, a good 10 years after that for me to choose to continue. Just I want you to know the dragging isn't always.
Well, inviting.
But yes,
Let's
fair
change
enough.
the language. Inviting.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys. I really appreciate everybody here. Have a
Bye,
great day.
everyone.
Bye,
Thanks, guys.
everyone.
Soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.